Welcome to Hello Newman Sports Podcast, Ep.8. We're on our going to complete our second month tonight, Jordan. I'm John Newman,
I'm Jordan.
Father and son. Not a huge sports week, believe it or not, but a couple bigger stories that we can spend maybe a little extra time with. I guess the biggest story this week, Jordan, Sam Darnold finally moved after being rumored that the Jets were in love with Zach Wilson. I think they're going to consummate that marriage, and Sam Darnold's on his way to Carolina. Carolina giving up a lot of picks. They still have Teddy Bridgewater, but I think that'll probably change at some point. But before we get into Bridgewater, let's talk about the trade itself with Darnold going there. I like him. I think he helps them out. I don't know. I guess two things: who won the trade as far as what was involved, and how much is Sam Darnold that better than Bridgewater, kind of to make that move?
Yeah, I think the Darnold and Bridgewater, I think they're just the potential wise with Darnold just outweighs what Bridgewater is. And I think even with what Darnold is now is pretty much what kind of Bridgewater is anyways. So Darnold's kind of only got better to get, especially with what's kind of there. Trade wise, it's tough to say now who won the trade. I kind of lean with the Panthers. I just think they really didn't have to give up too much for a former pick like that early of a pick, who his bad play hasn't really been his fault, and it's kindly widely agreed on that it was kind of the position he was in. So Carolina didn't have to give up too much, and I think it's great for Darnold going to a situation with Joe Brady, who was great with Burrow at LSU, and then going to a situation that's completely different than New York. Carolina flies under the radar a lot. He'll get a chance to, I think, really be a quarterback and be a team guy, where I think in New York, he had to kind of be a little bit of a showman, and I don't think he's that kind of guy. And I think kind of having that extra weight, especially when you're not known to be that guy, can be tough, especially when you're not winning. And a guy like Gase above him, who really didn't put him in great chances too, it was probably real difficult, especially obviously with the New York media the way it is. I think Carolina is almost a perfect scenario. I think it worked out for kind of the Jets too. I think, we've kind of known it's going to be Wilson really for a little bit now. But I just think what they did to Darnold, making it like there was some hope he could come back, and like they weren't sure, they knew. And I think holding on to him as long as they did wasn't really fair to him. And I think they hurt themselves. I think there was a lot more value in Darnold before Wilson and all these these names got huge pro days and all the buzz got going. Right before, they really should have got rid of Darnold when his stock was kind of high towards the end of the year. And they didn't really do that, so they kind of hurt themselves, and I don't think it was right to Darnold either to kind of hold him hostage in a way where I think they knew. I just think they were ready, and it didn't make sense. I think holding a guy who's really done your organization right, kind of holding him like they did for trade value and then not getting the trade value in the end, it wasn't a great look. But I don't think there's going to be too much hard feelings. I think I like the Panthers in the trade, but I think if Zach Wilson or if Justin Fields comes out of nowhere for the Jets and is, a Hall of Fame guy, it's one of those ones down the line you look back and you probably don't argue too much about it.
Yeah, I feel bad for Darnold, and I don't feel bad for Darnold. Here's what I'm talking about when I say that. I feel bad for Darnold because they never really gave him weapons in New York, but they blamed him. And now whoever the Jets draft at number 2, whatever quarterback, they're going to have some weapons. When Darnold got drafted there, he came in with an empty cupboard.
Well, I'm still not sold on their weapons. I like Corey Davis, but I don't.
Well, they also have 10 draft picks, I believe, in this draft, so they're going to really.
Yeah, it's still. Corey Davis is kind of your big guy, and I still, like we talked about in the episodes before when they first got him, is they needed to make another move at receiver to make that pick, that signing really good to me, and they didn't really end up doing anything. So to me, if you're really leaving him out on the island as, that's our star receiver, I don't know how much you're giving. I mean, I just think that's what hurts is if you keep Darnold at 2, or even if you trade back, you have so much where you could really finally give Darnold that shot. It's a weird situation because I think by moving on from Darnold, you're really almost running in place. And I don't think the potential of Justin Fields or Zach Wilson is what Darnold's is. And I think people like to forget because it was a few years ago and we've seen all these other quarterbacks, play so well early. Darnold was a huge prospect, and a lot of people thought he was the best quarterback of his class. And I think with what we know with Gase, and then seeing a guy like Tannehill, who is under Gase, he leaves and becomes a top, I don't want to call him a top-tier quarterback, but he was playing top-tier level football in Tennessee right when he left Gase. And I think that's something we could definitely see with Darnold. So I just think a lot of people have this short-term memory where they forget Darnold still has a lot of this potential. And yeah, the interception numbers are concerning, but that was a problem he had before. And having a guy with Gase who really didn't facilitate anything or didn't really help him be any better of a quarterback, I think we could really see a big boom with Darnold where it's really, he makes that development that he never got to do in those first couple of years.
Well, let's be honest, man. Whoever the pick is at 2, they're coming into a better situation than Sam Darnold was drafted into. They're going to have more weapons. We can argue maybe not a ton more.
Definitely more, though.
Well, they're going to be better just in the fact, guess who's not the coach?
Yeah, Gabe, that's the big thing.
They got Saleh now there. So whoever the pick is, it's probably going to be Wilson. He's going to be in a more stable situation than Darnold got drafted into. And that's where I sort of feel bad for Darnold is he's not getting the same situation the next Jets quarterback is getting the benefit of the doubt. However, here's the happy side of that coin. He's going to a quieter type of city. I think this is more up his alley. He never really fit in tremendously in New York. Being a New Yorker myself, it's not a place for being demure and quiet and reserved. And if you don't play well, they're going to let you know about it. And I don't know if, he has the personality that can handle that. When he made that comment about where he got overheard on Mic'd Up about seeing ghosts, he's never lived that down. Some of that is because it's New York and they're not going to let you. And so now he's going to go to Carolina, like you said, play with Matt Rule, who's looking like a really good coach, and Burrow's quarterback and offensive guy in LSU, and Brady. He's going to get better coaching. Let's be for real. I mean, Adam Gase. I can make an argument that I'm a better coach than Adam Gase. My eyes aren't as weird as his either, but that's a whole other show. But all joking aside, I think he's going to a more stable environment in Carolina.
Just even having a guy like Christian McCaffrey, he never had a guy in offense that he could get the ball to.
Unless they trade him, which was rumored to be for a while there.
But just to have even another player where he can look to, and it's a legitimate NFL offensive player. And I think at times on the Jets, a lot of times he didn't have that. And for a rookie and even a second, third year guy to come in, and every time you go to look for a guy, they're a borderline guy, and there's not a guy that's a security blanket guy there for him. So just having someone he can turn and dump the ball off to and get 5 to 10 yards to even a breakaway touchdown is just going to be a huge difference. And I think confidence-wise, I think you'll probably see a lot more of just much more shots downfield and just where you see Darnold look more confident in the pocket. And I think that's what was difficult was early on you saw him struggling. You could kind of say it was the offense, the system. And then I think later on there was some where he was making those mistakes himself. But you could see he looked tentative himself from what he was kind of going through the years before. So I think it'll be good to see him kind of break out a fresh start. And he's going to a place with, like you said, with Matt Rule and then Joe Brady. You have great offensive minds there, regardless who the quarterback is. So now you're taking a guy with his potential. It should be a good mix. And I think just to breathe fresh air away from Gase is probably a huge thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. If it doesn't happen now in Carolina, it's not going to happen, and Darnold's not going to be what some people think he is. So now, the onus is on him. I think even with that being said, though, I think he goes in there sort of with less pressure and a better environment and a better situation to be successful. Don't forget, Christian McCaffrey catches a lot of passes. He's never had a weapon like that in New York. And, a guy I love there too, man, receiver in DJ Moore that I really, really like. And we'll see if that makes any difference. He's played pretty well, but let's see if he takes that next step with Darnold taking the snap. So, they still have to do something with Bridgewater. As far as who won the deal, this might be one of those deals you can make a case for both sides, right? The Panthers get what they consider an upgrade. They gave up a lot of picks, not a ton of early ones, but in sheer number, they gave up a lot of picks. The Jets are going to do that deal. I mean, you can't blame them. I think without anybody playing a game, let's put it that way, without any games being played, I think the Jets won on paper. And a lot of it's going to come down to if Zach Wilson, and let's assume that's the pick they go with, struggles, then we can say, well, maybe the Panthers won the deal because the Jets still have quarterback issues. And and if he plays well in Carolina, you can say, well, see, it was the team, it wasn't the quarterback. And so I think we're gonna have to wait. I think right now we'll call it a draw, a push, if you will. And we'll have to wait till games are played before we really can determine who won the trade.
I just think the Jets held them a little bit too long. I think they probably had better offers in the beginning, and it sounded like they were getting more offers for Darnold early on. And I think just towards closer to the draft, as that hype got so big, and they didn't really hide that they fell in love with Zach Wilson, and I think that's what hurt them. Is unload Darnold before you put all your eggs into Zach Wilson's baskets, and I think teams saw that as they knew Darnold wasn't the guy.
Does Zach Wilson's baskets bring the Jets to the yard?
Yeah,
that's what I want.
Hopefully, but I just I think they waited too long, and I think they showed their hand too much with their love affair with Wilson. The Panthers knew they're not staying with Darnold, so I think they could lighten their offer a little. And I think that's what makes me lean a little bit towards the Panthers, is I think they kind of snuck in. They had that interest with Deshaun Watson early, and obviously what's going on with that, he's somewhat unavailable. I think they saw this, and they saw the Jets the Jets really probably don't want to hold on to Darnold any longer now than they want or have to, because they've shown, what they're going to do with that pick. And I think the Panthers kind of swooped in and took that opportunity to not have to give up too many extra picks. It is a lot of number, but I think only giving up really your best is a second-round pick for a guy with that much potential. I think it was pretty smart, and I think with the guys there is they have an idea, I think, what they're going to do going forward. But.
I agree with that. Here's one thing I don't really, I don't think Bridgewater's that terrible though. Like, I think there's teams that probably needed Darnold even more so than they did.
Yeah, but I think you're getting your quarterback of the future. I think that eliminates, in a year or two having to draft anyone. I think with Bridgewater, what he's going to be. Yeah, him and Darnold have been comparable recently, because Darnold's been, as bad as he was with the Jets. But I think Bridgewater, he is what he is. I think we've seen he's kind of going to be, a decent, a little bit above average starter, but he's not going to take you really to that next level. And I think with Darnold is you can kind of develop an offense and build around him. And I think with Joe Brady there and Rule is I think they really wanted to get their guy to develop and bring the offense forward. And I think even with the willingness to throw McCaffrey and trade offers with Watson kind of shows you, they want to. The offense
Boy,
isn't
I
good.
bet you they're glad they didn't
Yeah.
make that.
Yeah,
Can you imagine
messy.
they trade McCaffrey for Watson and then all
Well,
that
I'm
comes
sure
out?
all the teams that didn't, do talk, but I just think that the offense going forward, I don't think they wanted to do all too much till they had their quarterback, and I think now with Darnold and if they keep McCaffrey, we'll really see that offense kind of start to develop and open up, this year and years coming on.
Yeah, I don't know. I tell you what, I don't think the last quarterback's been traded for sure. You got Bridgewater now that's going to be relocating. I still think the 49ers move Jimmy G, especially now they have the third pick. So let's go to the draft here. Well, let's go ahead and pencil in Wilson to the Jets because I think that's how that's going to go. Now you got the Niners at 3. I mean, I saw a mock draft today, Jordan, that had them taking Mac Jones.
I've seen a lot.
3.
I've seen most of the ones I've seen have had Jones. That's if you're going up to 3, it doesn't make sense to get Jones because to me he's going to be there 6, 7, 8. You still give up a lot of picks to move up to 6, 7, and 8, but not as much to get to 3. So you're losing a couple extra picks really for the same guy. It just doesn't make much sense if they go with Jones. I think the logical pick would be Fields, and I think that's what they're going to do. I think Fields is more ready, and I think that's why you move up to 3. I think Lawrence and Wilson are going to go, and I think that's a situation where Kyle Shanahan, I think, probably recognizes Fields might be a little bit better than Wilson, and he's kind of consistently been higher rated. It's really been him and Lawrence, with Lawrence being 1, and then Fields kind of being 2, and then Wilson obviously had the year he did. And I think that's a situation where Shanahan sees that, and it's kind of like that's a guy that was probably going to be the second best guy in the draft to us. And I think there was no point in, waiting for a guy you believe in like that. That's what I would think. That's what would make sense to me to move up to 3. But, I mean, if you're moving up to 3 to pick Mac Jones, I think there's a lot of questions to be asked. It doesn't make that much sense. And to me, Mac Jones really is the same guy that you have there. To me, he's just like what Jimmy Garoppolo is, maybe even a less mobile Jimmy Garoppolo. So it just wouldn't make much sense. And I think you have Fields, who's a little bit more dynamic, a bigger arm, and can bring a bit more than Jimmy Garoppolo, and it would make more sense for Kyle Shanahan's offense. That's the only explanation to me. Like, if it's not Fields, I don't know. The Mac Jones pick would be the value you're getting at 3 for Mac Jones when you could have taken the same player and not had to give up as much. It just doesn't make too much sense.
Well, I hope San Fran takes Mac Jones because I've seen some other mock drafts that have us taking him at 24. I don't really want him.
I don't
even
think
at 20, even at 24. Yeah. So
I don't think I don't think really any of the quarterbacks fall that far.
No,
anymore.
I don't either. People overdraft quarterbacks because they panic and it'll the perceived last good guy on the board. Let's get him, or someone else will. Someone's going to overdraft a few quarterbacks, and Mac Jones sounds like a rapper that's got a new album coming out, right? So, but
I don't mind Mac Jones, but I Pittsburgh to me has more needs than that, anyways. But just the Niners at 3 to me has to be Fields, and I don't mind Fields, and I think he's a guy that's been inconsistent in college and kind of needs a good offensive coordinator or coach to really guide him, and I think that's a situation. He steps in, they have talent. He's got that kind of coach. I think that would be really good for him as well, not just for the Niners. So I think the logical pick would be Fields. But like you said, everything I've really seen has pointed to Mac Jones, and they
could be a smoke screen.
Yeah, they both, I know,
play that game too.
They both did have their pro day on the same day, and they went to Mac Jones and not Fields, unless that was a thing where they know what they have with Fields, and you know what I mean, kind of a last minute, but you never know with any of this stuff now. So.
Yeah, let's talk about the 4th pick held by the Atlanta Falcons. They announced they'd like to trade out of it. I'm not sure why. To me, if I'm the Falcons at 4, I know what guy I'm looking at, and he doesn't throw the ball. He catches the ball. It comes out of Florida, and that's Pitts. I think he's arguably maybe the best pick in this draft. I don't think the Falcons have a tight end better than him. He can be a game changer on this offense. And Matt Ryan, if that's your guy, and it is, they're not drafting a quarterback yet. That gives him one big-time weapon before his career is over.
I think they mentioned he's not available, but they're listening.
Yeah, I don't think Matt Ryan goes anywhere.
Me
I think
either,
they keep him. And so if you're going to keep Matt Ryan, he's on the back 9 of his career. He's still got some years left if they keep him for those years. Why not give him a weapon like Pitts at number 4? Arguably could be the number 1 pick, not for Trevor Lawrence. But apparently I don't think they want Pitts. So they've announced they'd like to trade back and out of the 4th spot. If I'm a guy, obviously I think that pick is going to go somebody who wants that quarterback, that Trey Lance or Mac Jones or Fields, whatever one, 2 or 3 are left at that point. I think Atlanta knows that. They're probably just trying to accumulate even more picks. They got some holes to fill. If I'm a guy that likes Pitts a lot, I might even consider moving up to 4.
That's what'll be interesting. Is that'll, I think, what determines who moves up to that pick. Because if a certain guy, Fields is there, a team that's in on Fields might move up. Where if you have Jones still there, the team that likes Fields is out. You know what I mean? I think you could have a multiple different teams be interested. And like you said with Pitts, if that pick comes available, and even a team that's low in the draft that sees a guy that they view as, that kind of generational talent like Pitts is starting to look like, I think you could see a team just say, we don't never expect a guy like that to be available there and just give up kind of what they have to give up regardless. I think that pick could be almost anything. But Atlanta itself, they're such in a weird place because they have talent. And it's just hard to place, defensively, obviously they struggled. But offensively, they've had guys and they've put up numbers, and they're kind of
arguably they got, to me, one of the best receivers in football right now, and that's Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, and you have Julio on the other side, who a lot of people like.
Pitts to that. You got Pitts, Ridley, Julio,
that
Matt
I think
Ryan.
That's your argument. Is they used to have Austin Hooper, they used to have Tony Gonzalez. It's what else really is there? They've had the talent. You used to have Todd Gurley. Is what is the problem there? And I think defensively, obviously, they're not great, but they used to be good on defense not too long ago with that offense. So it's just a difficult kind of thing to figure out. Because I don't know how much it matter.
I think they want a bunch of picks. I think it's sort of smart because I think someone's going to really overpay in picks.
Yep.
Like you said, if it's a quarterback needing team, they're going to come up so they can nab their guy and give up a lot of picks.
Well, that's the thing.
If it's someone who loves Pitts, they're going to give up a lot of picks to assure that they
you really have 3 markets in a sense. You know what I mean? If Mac Jones is there, you have teams that like Jones. If you have Fields, you got teams that like Fields. And then if Pitts, you have kind of a wider array teams with just because of the generational talent he is. So I think opening themselves up to that is smart. But it'll be interesting to see how true do they really want to move, or is it kind of a thing where they're just seeing if they can be blown away, for that deal.
Yeah, the draft's going to be fun. I know we usually, our tradition here at this household is we order some pizza and wings. We try to predict where each team's going to go. And I remember one of the, even though it wasn't a Steeler moment, one of my favorite moments was recently with that Giants at that 6th pick taking Daniel Jones when I really was shocked. Even though it was rumored, I thought they were going to take it with that second.
4.
I think it was 6, but I thought they were going to get him
Yeah.
with their second pick in the first round, and they went ahead and I remember my jaw just hitting the floor, and we always have fun watching
Yeah.
it. You never know. And the draft, I tell you what, when you talk about all the drafts in the sports, I think football is obviously the funnest one to watch. I know for us, we know most of the players being we follow college football. What you don't see in football that much in drafts that you see in basketball, and I'm not sure why not, but and sometimes in the basketball drafts you'll see a team draft a guy knowing they're not keeping them. They're actually drafting them for another team, and then already have a deal in place, the trade. You know what I mean? So you don't really see that in football, where let's say the Falcons stay at 4, but they work a deal where they work a deal with another team. They pick who that team wants at 4, and then make kind of a player and picks deal. You see it more in basketball than football.
I wonder. I'm not sure. I'm wondering if it's like a technicality thing where the NBA doesn't.
We've seen it sort of one time with the Eli Manning deal. Remember that?
Yeah.
Where the Chargers took him and he went on stage and just frowned and sort of stood.
But I don't. That was a thing. I don't know if it was a premeditated one.
He told him he ain't coming there, so they took him. I think knowing they were going to trade him. It was the awkwardest draft picture I've ever seen. He just kind of standing there, with almost no look on his face, just plain blank, no smile, no frown, just kind of no emotion. And later on, obviously, they worked out a deal with the Giants where Rivers went to the Chargers, and Manning went to the Giants, and the Steelers in that draft said, "Hey, we'll take any of those 3 guys."
We won that trade. Who won the Eli Rivers trade? Is Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And so they just said, whoever falls to us, we're getting. It worked out. Sometimes that makes me nervous, that sort of philosophy. Like, if you really like a certain guy and you can go up and get him.
I think that's a situation, I think, that Roethlisberger could have been their guy. And you know what I mean? They weren't going to, go out and say, that. But I think the big thing comparing the drafts is there's so much more impact guys in, I think, the NFL draft, and not just, I think the NBA, you have a few guys that are going to be huge stars kind of right off the jump, and you usually know early on, and really outside of those like 10 guys, it's kind of a steeper fall. And I think with Major League Baseball, obviously, you don't see a lot of those guys for quite a while, and same with hockey. And I think with football, is a lot of the names you hear, you're likely going to hear Sunday too. So I think it brings a lot of the fans together because you have guys that are going to be relevant right away. And I think in just all areas of the field, where I think most other drafts, you only have a select few. You have a couple of developmental guys, but you really don't have a whole lot of guys that are going to be difference makers or impact players like the NFL does right out of the gate.
Yeah. Let's go to a different sport. We talked quite a bit about football. Let's go to baseball. Big news breaking recently is, there's a thing going on in Georgia politics with voter referendums and voting laws. I don't want to make this show political. I think there's enough of that going on. But Major League Baseball wants to get political, and they've stripped the Georgia, if you will, but the Braves organization and that stadium of the All-Star game. Apparently looks like it's going to Coors Field where the Rockies play. My idea was, I don't think Georgia should be stripped of the game, but if you're going to do that, play the game at the Field of Dreams field where the Yankees and White Sox are playing a game. But how I said this on my Twitter feed, Jordan, for Sports Card Nation. How about moving the All-Star game to the field, the Field of Dreams field, right? And in an All-Star game there are a lot of position changes, a lot of pitchers. Anytime a new guy comes in, he has to run out of the cornfield.
Yeah.
Like, how cool would that be? Like, to see like modern day legends come out of the corn and take their position or whatever, the shortstop, center field. The new pitcher's coming in, he runs out from the corner and takes the mound. And I think it would be surreal. I think people who aren't even baseball fans, who just even love that movie or love that nostalgia, would just love that. I think you never see. We're going to obviously, hopefully by next year, sort of be on the other side of this pandemic thing. And so I think we'll be back to normalcy, some sort of normalcy. This might be the last time something like that could be done on that level. I would have loved to see it. Someone said, well, you're not going to get a lot of people watching the game there. You can get corporate folks there. We don't have a lot of people in the stands anyway. If you're going to do it, this would be the year to do. Hey, they're playing a Yankees White Sox game there, right? You can have the same amount of people for that there, and so I would love to see it. By the way, for anyone, they should sponsor the show with what I'm about to say. That Field of Dreams field, which is in Dyersville, Iowa, and we're going to do this at some point, Jordan, just so you know, maybe in the next few years. You can rent the house that's used in the movie, that,
Field of Dreams?
Kevin Costner, where him and his wife in the movie, the farmhouse there. That house is real. That wasn't just built set. You can rent that house for the night. It's a little expensive, but how cool is that? It's $500 a night, and I think for $600 you get the field for an hour or two too, and you can invite people and throw the ball around, hit the ball, and we're gonna do that. Maybe we'll get a group of dudes and we'll make a trip out of it. We'll stay one night in the Field of Dreams house, and we'll play some baseball on the field, and you can pitch, and I'll hit some in the corn off you.
He was right up until the hitting part. I don't know if the money will be getting hit, but
but I mean, that's a cool thing. So I didn't realize that until when I actually made the statement about moving the All-Star game there. I kind of looked into what goes on there, like when they're not playing a Major League Baseball game there, and they rent it out. Teams can hold practices there. You can sleep in I think it's like 3 or 4 bedrooms in that house, and so you can rent the whole house for one night for $500. So you can get a group of people and have enough beds, and it's a regular house. So there are dressers, there's furniture, there's a kitchen. And it's cool. Maybe if you spend the night there, maybe you'll really see the ghost of like Shoeless Joe come out of the corn, and you'll get a real life like ghost experience. But something I plan on doing at some point. But let's go back. We got a little off tangent there. Let's talk about what do you think? I don't want to make this politics. I wish baseball didn't do this. I think. It's a sort of a bad precedent. I don't like mixing sports and politics.
In this situation, I think it's tough. I think they wanted to send a message, and I understand that. I think the situation that it's tough is a lot of the people you're punishing aren't really at all to blame for what their issue is. So I think you're punishing the organization itself. They lose out on money and sales and merchandise of, Atlanta-based All-Star stuff. And I just think it hurts a lot of the people around Atlanta who didn't, they're not the reason that whatever law, the voter ID stuff is, it's not their fault. And I think you're punishing that area and a lot of the people around there and the businesses really around there that would have that kind of influx of people, and just to kind of pull it away. And I understand the motivation, and it would have been better if they could have done something that directly hit the state of Georgia itself, and not, because I just think a lot of the trickle down is going to come down against people that weren't intended to. Hopefully they have something in, a situation where they can move it back there, either if they figure, that situation out, or for the next years instead, and kind of push, all the All-Star games back where they can get it to Atlanta. It's just kind of an odd thing to jump it to all of a sudden to Colorado. I just think I get.
And here's the thing again, to get into politics, Colorado is on the opposite side of that political fence. And so it's just kind of funny how the game winds up there. Here's the other thing. I think it's easy for Major League Baseball to do this in a pandemic year where you're not going to have many people in the stands anyway. I think they're taking advantage of. I sort of don't like that because you're only doing it because you can, not to make a real sort of statement. And like you said, I think you summed it up perfectly. I think you're hurting people who have nothing to do with the reason you're pulling the game out of that stadium in that city to begin with. So I just don't, I know it's in modern times. I'm going to sound like the old man on the porch here. I don't like politics and my sports. They should be two sort of separate things. I know that the players are people too.
There's certain things you can't separate. And in this situation, I just wish is you want to, send a message, figure something out where funds that would go to the state from that game, or the money that goes from, Major League Baseball to Georgia for that game, figure out a way to cut that. Don't punish the people in the organization who really had nothing to do with it. And I mean, Atlanta themselves, the organization kind of has to be sitting there a little bit confused because they're
a little shell shocked because I'm reading this, Jordan. I don't know if you saw this. They didn't even really get a warning. It was just kind of like they found out like we did. Like they're watching the news and they find out like, hey, we're not getting the game. I thought that was sort of dirty politics too. Want to talk politics? That's dirty politics. Like if you're going to pull the game from the Braves in the stadium, be a man and say, hey, we're thinking of doing this, just so you know.
Well, I think part of your main problem is there's just a huge lack, I think, of leadership from the MLB with Manfred being there. I think
Rob Manfred's one of the worst commissioners,
and it's sad because there is so much talent and there in the game, and he talks so much about growing the game, and there's really no emphasis on players and all. He's just done kind of everything opposite to what a lot of people, fans and players alike. It's not really, just working with the fans or just working for the players or the owners. He's really turned everyone off. And it's just
he's a local guy. He's from Rome, New York here. So, but he's been, I think, one of the worst commissioners. I never thought I'd say this. I sort of miss Bud Selig. I always thought he was sort of a weenie sort of a guy, but he was actually – I didn't give him apparently enough credit. I actually miss Bud Selig. Rob Manfred, has been, I think, really have fall short of the mark. When the owners get together to either re-up them or get a new guy, I think they really have to look at this and see what other candidates they can bring in. I think he's been all over the place. I think he's been inconsistent. Let's talk about even, we'll go off on a little Manfred tangent here. Let's look at some of the punishments, right?
Yeah.
We know what the Astros did. No suspensions come out of that.
And we
Nick Castellanos,
that's what I was going to say.
Castellanos just kind of poses and says, let's go. And he gets suspended.
And you can't sit there and say, let the kids play. We want to see, emotion in the game and all this stuff. And you have that, and then that was too much. Where's the line? How high is a bat flip is too high? For Manfred. And I think he's just, like you said, he's so wishy-washy. The punishments are kind of all over the place, and
who he'd be good? You know what he'd be good at? Running the NCAA.
Yeah.
Because they're very inconsistent too. He really would be the perfect head of the NCAA because what they dole out is all over the board too. He'd fit right in. But think about this: what Nick Castellano did this weekend, which was minor, honestly, got more time than the Astros cheating scandal. I mean, that's embarrassing. Like if I'm Rob Manfred and I see these memes and joke posts and stuff, I'm embarrassed that happened under my leadership. And
and I think that was the difficult thing was he never he never put, any punishment, hard punishment down on the players or anything, but he never even talking about it seemed all too bothered. And to have a cheating scandal of not a couple players, but a system to that level, to that success they had, and to have it kind of, it brushed under for him, and it was, it happens, we're not going to put an asterisk next to him. We'll punish the coaches and, nothing else. When everyone was really calling for it, the only people defending them was Houston themselves. So I just think he's been so inconsistent.
Well, look, Mike Trout came out, who doesn't do a lot of talking. He doesn't always talking with his play. A pretty level-headed guy, doesn't get into controversies. He came out and was very outspoken that it was cheating, and it's terrible. And if they want to live with that,
just from the whole entire league itself was insane.
Heck, look at what you call it, the pitcher from the Dodgers who did that. The face, he got suspended for making that upper lip face. Just all over the place with discipline. Rob Manfred really got to look in the mirror and figure out what kind of leader does he want to be. What's he want to be known for? Does he want to be, does he want to be that footnote in baseball history, the joke of a baseball commissioner for 8 years or whatever it's going to wind up being? But he could still change things. He's still got the job. He can change the perception. If I
think one of the big problems is there's no relationship between Manfred in the MLB itself and the players, and I think you see the NBA and Adam Silver. There is a working relationship, and even the NFL with Goodell, especially kind of more in recent years. It's much more warm between at least players and
getting
him.
Hugs on stage,
and that's the thing. And you hear him talk to him, and as much as they might not like him behind the scenes, there's at least a presentation that he cares and that the players are cared for. And with Manfred, it's really like they're on two different planets. You almost never see pictures of Manfred and any MLB players. He rarely seems to be at games. I don't know if it's not publicized. He just seems very distant, as almost he is a walking suit. And I think that's the big problem, is for a guy that preaches, we got to get exposure to these star players, is you don't know many baseball players. I mean, Mike Trout is arguably going to be the greatest baseball player we've ever seen, ever. And you don't really know him. And it's just odd that.
Well, Major League Baseball, and I'm going to, I rarely stick up for Manfred. I'll stick up for him a little bit here. I think this has been a problem with Major League Baseball. Even before Manfred, they've never marketed themselves like they should. You're talking about a sport where you can see players' faces and emotions.
Well, I think
many people
their problem goes back,
players.
I think, to the 90s when it was the steroid era, and you had Seeley kind of let that happen until it got, he knew what was going on, but ratings were so good. And I think when he came down on that, since there's really been that big MLB and then the players, and it's since then it's always felt like two completely different entities. And to this day, I think when you think of MLB players, you really don't think of individual players. It's as a whole, and that's really the problem. So when you think of NFL players, you think of guys. You think of Brady. You think of Wilson. You think of Rodgers. And obviously with basketball.
And there's a sport, too, that has changed, right? Talking about the NFL. And the players are even more recognizable in that sport. And they got helmets on, and people know because they do more commercials. They're better indoors. And, even Goodell, who I'm not a huge fan of either, he's kind of changed his ways. He went from being sort of no celebrations. He's let them have a little fun. He's let them do. They even now give awards for the best touchdown celebration. They put the cameras on the end zone walls where the guys can go in front of it and pose. So Goodell's kind of adapted and given sort of the people what they want. Manfred is sort of a traditionalist almost to a fault. And the discipline does not make, the
Well,
discipline
he's
down don't
almost
make any sense.
he isn't necessarily because he does try. He's open to moving and the pitch clock and all that stuff. He's not a traditionalist in certain senses, and it's the stuff that kind of angers fans and angers players and really messes up kind of the rhythm of the game. So he's so willing to go speed up the game in ways that aren't really necessary. He just seems not to take input from the people that are playing the game, from the people that are coaching and managing, and from the people watching it. And he seems to have this mindset, or in whether it's people around him or just the idea of, people watch a game if we speed it up. Football games are played for long amounts of time. Basketball games are played for long amounts of time too. So this idea that baseball needs to be all condensed and played, it's just, that's not what it is. I think the problem is make the players exciting to watch. We've watched football games where your star player isn't exciting, but he's on the field. He's playing. That it's in itself is enough. And with baseball, there's no star players really. And whether they are or not, your casual fan doesn't know. So when you throw a game on, if the Mets are on, a lot of people aren't going to be like, oh, it's just the Mets. They're not going to be like, oh, Francisco Lindor, oh, Jake DeGrom. It's just there's not that draw of just watching the game to watch that guy. It just really, for almost anyone in baseball, it just doesn't exist. And to turn that and just be like, well, we need to speed the game up to get interest. It's just he's listening to almost, it seems like, all the wrong people and shunning and turning away the people that would know what's kind of best for the game. And it just, there's such a divide, it feels like.
Yeah, they
between
almost
them.
had a work stoppage during the pandemic under his leadership. And that would, I remember at that time, we didn't have the show, but I remember just thinking, this guy is brutal. You're having a potential work stoppage during a pandemic. And the work stoppage wasn't pertaining to the pandemic. It was to labor strife and issues. And it
looked a lot worse too, because the other leagues were really all kind of coming together and figuring out plans, and they were really the only one to plant their feet. And like you said, during a pandemic where other leagues are figuring out how to play, and get people safe, and they're worrying about money and who's getting what.
When they're already going to lose money because they can't have fans in the stand to begin with. I don't know. I believe he has a law degree. He's not a dumb guy, but some of the things he does is definitely head scratching. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a law degree. And I wouldn't do some of the stuff.
And I think that might be the problem is it feels like he's looking at it from a very law analytical way of thinking. And that's not what brings people to baseball games. People don't want to see a game at 2 hours and it stops. There's no time. It's you have to market what makes the game exciting. If people don't like it, they don't like it. But you can't make baseball anything other than baseball. And I think that's what he's really trying to do to get baseball out to a wider market. You just have to emphasize what makes baseball great and not try and make it what it's not. And I think he's just having a real difficult time, it seems, is balancing that out.
Yeah. All right, let's we got a little bit of time left. Let's go one more topic. Staying at baseball. It's I don't have the banner, but let's talk about the COVID issue. Our Mets and the Washington Nationals just wiped off their schedule like it was a dry erase board, didn't play those games. Washington had quite a few guys, I guess, either have COVID or come in contact with someone who did. So that series was not played. The Mets played their first game yesterday. Washington played their first game, I believe, today. It's sort of kind of odd, how they make these games up. I'm assuming will be double headers late in the year. But, it sort of puts a tax on the teams that now have to play maybe more games in the summer heat. And, and this is the first series of the year. What's going to happen? Are there going to be more outbreaks, more games canceled? I don't know what the answer is. I don't think anyone, I know we just kind of railed on Manfred. I'm not blaming him for COVID here, but I don't, I don't know. You can't play in the bubble. It's too late now, and I don't know if that's even the right answer anyway. So yeah, it's really one of those things. You probably
Yeah.
just cross your fingers and hope maybe that's the thing,
Well,
and we get
whatever
to watch
protocol or systems they have in place have to be better, because I think we've seen the NBA's been playing fine. We've seen the NFL actually had a
played
great
full
season.
season.
Yeah, and really had minimal. They had a few games, change, but nothing, serious.
But every game that was scheduled
Yeah.
was played. So
No, the Steelers Ravens. Yeah, they never.
moved
Yeah.
it. They moved it, but it was still
Yeah.
every game got played, and the Eagles even played with their JV squad
Yeah.
once, and no coaches. There was one game with no coaches, but yeah, baseball's got maybe you got to start doling out penalties
And that's what-
if a team violates something.
What concerns me is it was opening day, so you're the home team. The Nationals are. It's your home opener. You're that's coming up. You would think that's almost the one game you're almost guaranteed to be ready for. COVID situation wise, you're not traveling anywhere. You're in your home stadium, and for the Mets to kind of be in Washington already, to getting ready for the game, and to kind of hear, you can't play because we're contact tracing, and then the whole series is canceled. It just, to me, obviously I'm a bit biased being a Mets fan, but I think in any situation, it wouldn't be fair to any team to kind of be in that city, especially for opening day.
Well, it wasn't a wasted trip. They did help Byron carefully maneuver down Air Force One steps safely, some of the team, but all joking aside, I don't know. I think you got to have some. If a team is breaking protocols, doing stuff they should do, maybe fine them, maybe suspend players who are the perpetrators of that. Maybe even take away draft picks. I don't know the exact answer, but I know the NBA does that with players that violate stuff. They can fine them. I'm sure the NFL can
well, I
too.
know Haskins, I think, did.
Yeah. So I think you got to start making people pay for their mistakes, and people will fall in line. So I guess again, it is Rob Manfred's fault. I believe the COVID-19 is the Manfred virus. I think it came from his house. No, I'm just kidding. But right now he's right. If we're ranking commissioners, he probably doesn't want to check the standings out because he's the last one. To me, anyway.
Yeah, it's just I mean, whether it's a protocol thing or something has to be upgraded, and especially with baseball, it's not as much like basketball and football where you have really the same lineups rolling out there. You can really mess with a pitcher's rotation and a guy's rest by doing that, and you give other teams. Let's say you have a team that's waiting to the next series.
It's weird.
They get let's say a 2-game rest where they were supposed to play. Their bullpen is going to be going full blast into a series when you have another team who's coming off a series they just played where they're not nearly as rested.
The Mets and Nationals played their first game. Most teams had 3 or 4 games already in the standings played. It's just I know that a lot of times, it is what it is, but it's just, I don't know. I just like to see maybe a little more control over that.
And it seems like baseball has had the hardest time with it. We've seen, NFL have it, but they've maneuvered around it, and we've seen the NBA has really had a really good time getting through it.
I think the best job's been the NFL, and here's why. They played a full slate of games. They played the playoffs.
I think the number of players, just having 53 guys, not including coaching staff altogether, compared to the NBA having 15 guys is a lot, but the scale of guys you have
and
together.
In football, listen, that's a contact sport. These guys are sweating, bleeding on each other. And the fact that they got, I was shocked. I thought, I remember talking with Drew on the show we do, Rupp. I remember saying football, out of all the sports during COVID, is going to have I think the trickiest time getting through the year. And they almost came out unscathed. They had a couple blips on the map. I get it. But I was shocked that they played every game that was scheduled. I know they had, one game was a bunch of backups. One game, the whole coaching staff pretty much
Denver
wasn't
had
there.
a signed a guy that was working a normal job to play quarterback.
The Bengals, the Browns killed us with their coach in their living room. I mean, we could go on, and I'm still getting over that.
But I think the thing is, you hear all kind of these great things from the NFL and the NBA, and even the NHL really hasn't run into too many issues. But the MLB, you had the issue last year where Miami couldn't really get started. They canceled multiple series. And then you had Justin Turner pretty much was COVID positive during the World Series game, and then he came back after. And I understand, he was already with the team, but it's just such a bad look when you have other teams or other leagues kind of standing on the pedestal as the example, and you're kind of sitting there in the corner fumbling, not knowing what to do.
Rob Manfred has the anti-Midas touch. Just anything that could have really blew up in his face sort of did. I'm not even saying it's all his fault, but he definitely has to own a good portion of it. As crazy as it sounds, Roger Goodell gets a lot of hate, and I'm not a huge fan of him. I like him a little bit more than I used to. I'm not going to lie about that.
I think a lot of the James Harrison fines have started the times healed it.
But I think he's done, really, it's going to sound crazy, I think he's done the best job. Even the virtual draft was fun to watch. He had fun with it. He even made fun of himself, like, hey, no one's booing and your TV at home at me, he can laugh at himself. I thought the NFL made the best out of a bad situation. They played every game. The season wasn't shortened. Last year, Major League Baseball played a 60-game regular season. And, I understand why. I'm not necessarily blaming anyone, but baseball is a sport where stats are so legendary. And everyone that's playing right now got sort of a half year taken off their career. Again, due to a virus that's no one's fault in particular. But other sports played most of the games. I know the NBA also played a shortened season, but the NFL got their games in. And so it's tough, when it comes down to
even the NBA, it happened really in the middle of their season. So they kind of, picked it back up. Obviously, it was right towards the end of the playoffs.
Have to give them a definite pass.
But the fact the MLB, even to this day, opening day, is still kind of having issues with it. It's just concerning that they don't really have. Obviously, no one has everything locked down tight.
It's funny, they have these protocols, right? You can't do high fives and I'm watching games. I'm seeing dudes, hit a walk off, and they're all jumping on them like there's no pandemic. I know it's maybe they've all got the vaccine. I don't know all the parameters, but I know they're not supposed to do that.
What concerns me, or at least not as much that, but you have Manfred kind of saying all this good stuff about COVID, and you look at the Rangers, and they have a full capacity crowd. And regardless of kind of how you feel about it, it just isn't a great look when you're trying to get over that and you're close.
It's almost like, I know where you're going. It's almost like Manfred doesn't have any sort of. He's almost like a figurehead, and anyone does whatever they want, including him. Yeah. Doesn't seem to be a lot of organization in comparison to other leagues and other commissioners. Now, I get that too. Hopefully he corrects himself before he wrecks himself.
Yeah, I think part of it too isn't just him. I think the players' organization itself isn't the greatest either, and I think players.
I think it tells you the relationship between those two factions when you almost had a work stoppage during a work stoppage, a pandemic, right? So, they got some black eyes to heal, and if Manfred wants to keep that job. He's gonna. To me, he's got to make some improvements. If I'm a baseball owner and I have one of those votes on whether, right, and it was today, I'd be picking someone else.
They've been losing money. I know
to the next level.
Yeah, and baseball hasn't been doing all that well, and so I think the owners, obviously last year, definitely lost money but I think they've consistently kind of been on the downtrend anyways.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting because you don't see a whole lot of commissioner changes without, a guy retiring. So
well, maybe we'll see one with Manfred. Who knows? I thought Selig was going to be gone too, and he never.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I don't know. Baseball's weird apparently. So, well, we're about at the hour. Let's give out our socials as we usually do at this time of the show, Jordan. So you can follow us at Twitter at Newman_podcast. We're on Instagram at Hello Newman Sports Pod. We're on Facebook. If you just search in the search key there, Hello Newmans will pop up. Give us a follow on our Facebook group page. We're live every Tuesday night, like right now, from about 8 p.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern. And then if you don't catch us live, you can always catch us on most major podcast platforms any other day. And you can download even the old episodes. If you were hibernating for a couple weeks and you wanted to catch up on some of the hot topics, you can get all the episodes from episode 1 to this episode, which is number 8. And if you want to watch us live, that's Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. on YouTube. We're on the Sports Card Nation podcast YouTube. So we don't have our own YouTube page yet, but we're on the Sports Card Nation YouTube. We're also live on Hello Newman's Facebook and Facebook in general. So with that being said, I hope everyone's staying well and healthy, getting vaccinated like I did this week, and I was the last one here, Jordan, to do it, and we're all good now. So thanks for listening, whether you're listening live or you're catching us later on. We'll see you next Tuesday.